Moon Knight is one of the better Marvel TV shows. It has a strong start and a great penultimate episode, but like most of these Marvel shows, the finale just kind of sucks. It could have been a bit longer. I think the problem with these shows is Marvel likes to keep increasing the hype every week. How do you do that? By creating new plot lines and story elements to the point you can't finish them all in one episode, but they wait till the last episode every time to close off any plot points, which leads to a finale that feels rushed and in some cases unearned. Moon Knight is carried by its performances and characters Mark, Steven, Arthur, Layla, Floating Skull Man, Big Alligator, and more are all very interesting. Especially Mark and Steven's relationship, they carry the show here. The whole reason the penultimate episode is spectacular is because of the amazing relationship you have there. But let's back up. Episode 1 is a great intro to this character. You open up as Steven, and throughout the episode you start to learn everything is not as it seems. And boom, at the very end you get Mark and Moon Knight black. Episode 2, you continue this a little bit more. You get more of Steven and Mark communicating, and eventually Mr. Knight and Moon Knight at the end. Cool. Episode 3 is great, with a lot more Moon Knight and Steven setting the stage for a finale. This was new for a Marvel show to be progressing this fast, and at the end of the episode, Khonshu is sealed up. Oh no. And episode 4 grinds to a fucking halt as we get somewhat of a generic love plot with these weird monster things that are never explained, but this episode is okay because of those performances. Episode 5 is amazing, but again grinds to a halt, and you get a lot of background info on Steven and Mark's past, which is all super well done. It's emotional, funny at parts, and that ending is so sad. And after this episode finishes, you realize they just spent the last 2 episodes doing pretty much nothing to progress the story. And you get to the finale, which is sadly quite mid. It feels rushed. The Layla plotline, where she becomes like the fucking beetle or whatever her name, just feels unearned. But the action, I mean, is cool, and I still love the characters, so it's a fine episode. Hate how they used Jake as just a big fucking cane instead of showing us the badass action. Just, oh, fade to black, and boom, Mark and Steven wake up, and it's perfectly done. And they're winning again and whatever. But overall, with some banger episodes, great performances, characters, interesting ideas, they all make this thing like a 75 out of 100 on the Slosh scale. Just wish it nailed the ending and pacing a little more. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is a weird one because I really like this movie. However, it's kind of mixed for most people. I'd assume this is because of the 2 different groups of expectations that people went in with. On one hand, you have people who went in with the hype that Sam Raimi was returning to the comic book genre with Doctor Strange in the multiverse, and it was announced as the MCU's first horror film, and that's what got me and other people hyped about it. But then there's the group of people hoping that it would be this big cameo fest with huge implications on the future of the MCU, and that is not what this movie is. This movie is from start to end Doctor Strange's and Wanda's story. I've seen some people say Doctor Strange goes through no arc in this movie, and I just have to wonder if they even watched the film, because he goes on a pretty big arc. He realizes that he can't be the one holding the knife, if you will, and he is maybe more dangerous than he thought he was at the beginning of the film and in Infinity War and the first Doctor Strange. And that's the whole point of this movie. So yes, Doctor Strange does go on a pretty big arc here that I would say changes his character a lot. We see him being dangerous in movies like Spider-Man, casting spells because it's a simple spell and whatnot, and he fucks things up. By the end of this movie, he learns maybe his ego and pride are dangerous to not just him but everybody around him. I really like all the characters here. I think they are well done. Scarlet Witch is, I would say, the star here. Every scene she's in is unsettling in a good way. You really get to see the full on Scarlet Witch in this movie, and it's very cool. Even though for most part she doesn't really do anything cool, she doesn't like whip her cock out or anything, she really only uses her balls of chaos magic for everything. Unlike Doctor Strange, who uses a lot of weird and cool spells in this movie. Without spoilers, there's one scene of magic involving music. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and it's very fun and weird. He also uses magic pigs and hands, a lot of goofy stuff, which was cool to see. While this film isn't cameo heavy, there are some cameos, most of which were in the trailer, so I'm going to talk about a few, not in detail, but mention them. They had Captain Carter, Professor X, and Captain Marvel. There was one cameo in this movie that wasn't in the trailers that I personally thought was really cool, and so glad it happened, until most of these cameos are what I hate, which is kind of useless. They do nothing except just, wow, look who's there. In Spider-Man, Tobey and Andrew have big implications and help the story move forward. In this movie, it's just, wow, look, there's Professor X. So they could have done a bit more with these characters and the multiverse in general. There's one scene that's in the trailers where you have Strange in America flying through weird worlds. There's a paint one, there's one that has Tony Stark tech drones, an animated world, and instead of exploring those madness worlds, their madness, like their multiverse of madness. And this is a really tiny spoiler, by the way, but their like multiverse of madness was a world that looks nearly the same as ours, except you go on red and you stop on green. That's some madness right there. America Chavez is a fun addition to the MCU. Marvel has been doing well at including new characters that I want to see more of, like Yelena, Shang-Chi, and now America. I thought America was going to be done very poorly and used very sideliney just to allow Strange to do multiverse shit. But no, she's put in the forefront and a lot more, and she's entertaining. And I'm sure she's going to have a big role in the multiverse phase of the MCU. I also like the horror and the death scenes in this movie. It's nice to see the MCU taking bigger risks on movies like this or The Eternals. Even though they might not work out all the time, it keeps things fresh, and this movie does not feel like an MCU movie. It feels like Evil Dead 2 Doctor Strange edition. If you like Evil Dead movies, this has a lot of Evil Dead feel, from death scenes that are really rough, especially one involving a mouth, and there's some scenes that just keep you slightly unsettled. One scene has Wanda just walking through a kitchen and a painting of her turns and looks towards her. The mug has an ocean in it, plates fall sideways. Just some slightly unsettling things the MCU hasn't done before, and I respect the fact that they decided to take a risk. In my mind, it paid off. Last thing I want to talk about is the dialogue. This movie has very cheesy dialogue, especially close to the end when you get those campy one-liners like "go back to hell" and shit like that. It's cheesy, and most movies it would feel very awkward, and I would probably be pretty mad about it. But with how weird and goofy this movie is, and especially at the third act when they happen, it just gets so goofy. And since it's Sam Raimi, I don't know, it just kind of works for me. It puts a smile on my face, and that's what I like. So it's a negative, but not as big as a negative as it would be in other movies. I wish they would have dived deeper into the multiverse of madness. The dialogue could flow a bit better. The characters, the weird and fun fight scenes, the horror, and just in general, the differentness of this movie makes it one that stands out in the MCU, whether or not you like it or not. So, for all those reasons, this movie's going to get an 87 out of 100 on the Slosh scale. And on the official MCU tier list, I would put Moon Knight right about here. And I'd put Doctor Strange right about there.